Welcome to the following of the Django tutorials on creating the charts in Django. And in this part of the tutorial, we want to show you how you can add other charts to this page. And that is not a very big deal, although it might look hard when you want to transfer data from Python to JavaScript, and you might wonder how else you can transfer data from here in the views.py to the charts.html. Well, the answer is whatever data you push here, you can then create the data. You can create the data necessary for your line chart or bar graph. So you can add as many canvases as you want over here, and also you can the other thing you can do is to use these functions as many times as you want, but it's all about managing data inside of your function here. So the data that you put in for your functions needs to be in a correct form, meaning that it should contain the data labels, chart label, and charts data in just the form we had inside of our views.py: labels, chart label, and charts data. So the thing we will do here is to extend our database and update it, and then what we're going to do is to manage those data inside of here, inside of the views.py, and then we will transfer the data related to the time and also related to the blood pressure. So as you know, in blood pressure we have two numbers, one number over the other, but we've only worked on the number that is on the top, not on the bottom. So now we want to add both of them to the database and be able to show both of them on our graphs. So the next thing we're gonna do is to complete our models.py, and here we can add blood BP2, which is the second number of blood pressure. So we can add models.character field, and it's going to be exactly the same as our blood pressure, right? So we can write max length equal to 255, and there we go. So, and by the way, let me stop the server. There we go. And I can also clear the terminal for you to better see what's going to happen. Now, what we're going to do is to add some data to our database. Also notice that we have this database that have already been created, this migration folder inside of our migration folder, and it contains our tables, right? But we want to create a new migration file, so let's delete this one, and once again let's make migrations. So we can run python manage.py make migrations. So now we need to run python manage.py migrate. There we go. And so it's time to create our database. So actually to add data to our database. So what we need to do is to run the server, python manage.py run server. And now we can run the server, and okay, let's refresh. And right now we don't have any data, and it's obvious because we've lost our database. I've removed that part. Right now we can head over to our admin panel, and right here we still have some data, but we have some other data missing. So let me just, as you can see, we cannot change these data because they have another data attached to them. So right now with the new data that we have in our database, actually these data here are not our table, they're in our SQLite database in our my chart folder. Let me show you right now. This is the db.SQLite tree, and this contains some data containing the super user and the data that we've stored in our tables. But right now, if you look at our chart app and our migrations, we have a new initial.py containing the new data. So we have BP2 here as well. And now we can add some new data to our database. So imagine that our first number is 120/80. Let's save this. So right now I've done something extra to what I've done right now. I deleted db.SQLite3, and then what I've done up to now, it has been to first of all delete the SQLite, and then again make migrations and migrate. And after getting confirmation, I created the super user one more time and then ran the server. And so we've got rid of all of the data that we've been having, and as a result we get no error entering the data. As you can see, I've entered a data containing the blood pressure and BP2. So let me save this another time. And you can add even more. You can add, so for example, 135/70. And I'm not sure about the data. I'm just entering some numbers, right? So you don't need to be worried about anything, just about whether the data is genuine or not. I'm just testing and trying. So let's add some other data. So this time 115 over, for example, 85. So I'm gonna pause the video and add some other data. So now I've added 12 data to our database because we're considering 12 of them in the last part. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And it contains two kind of data. So the next step I will need to do is to manage what kind of data we have over here. So let me for now, let me stop the server. Press Ctrl+C to stop the server and clear the terminal. So what we need to do in the following is, so let us check the data. So the URLs are fine. You don't need to change the URLs. It has all that we want. And in the views.py, we have rendered the homepage. But the next thing we need to do over here is to manipulate the data that we're going to send. So we need to do, for the time that we have, actually the labels that are the time that we've recorded the data. We've got these data.date, also data.blood pressure. So let me copy this one, and we're gonna do exactly the same thing for BP2, right? So we need for the number 2 of our blood pressure. So we create another array for that, and here we will use BP2 instead of blood pressure. And so for I in range dblen database length, which is right now 12, data equals to data.objects.get, id equals to i+1, bp.append int data. So we need here integer because the data needs to be integer so that it can be shown as a number on the graph. So, but for the horizontal axis or for the x-axis, because it's just a label, we need the strings. We need them to be strings. So the date here is being converted to str to be as a string. So be careful about these two, the horizontal and vertical type of the data. And then we don't necessarily need to create this kind of dictionary. We can create another kind of dictionary. We can use any kind of dictionary that we want. And then we can transfer the data using the response. And then in our JavaScript code, we can create the kind of data that we want right there, not necessarily here. So this data right here is managed in a way so that once it enters the functions inside of the line chart or bar graph, it would be able to easily create these data that we want, data.chart label, chart data, and data labels. And we didn't need to do anything on the data that we've been given from the REST framework. We just put it inside of our functions. But if we change the format of data right here, another kind of dictionary without labels, chart label, and chart data, what we need to do is to actually, first of all, manage the data, create that format of dictionary here in JavaScript, and then put the data inside of the two functions, and then put them inside of the canvases that we've created above, which we haven't created yet, and we will create in the following. So first of all, let me add the data pp2, and here I'm gonna add this to we can add another one for bp2. So chart data 2 can add chart data number 2, and here I can say that, for example, this. Also, don't forget about the commas because they are really important. Now, all I need to do is add the bp2, right? That's it. So we can now transfer the data just as easy as that. And here inside of our charts.html, first of all, let's create other canvases for another row and other canvases for the next line. So I can copy and paste all of these HTML codes and right over here. So here I can write blood pressure 1, bar graph 1, so blood pressure 2, and bar graph 2. So we will call the functions twice in order to do what we want for us. So now what we need to do here is actually, so we don't need to do anything on the HTML codes. So I guess right now that's it. I can add an HR tag in order to create a space between the two parts. Between the div tag over here and there. So this is necessary. And now here we need to copy and paste these two functions. And here we are. So the data that is inside of our, first of all, let's look at here. So we had the chart data and chart data 2. So for the first one, we have all the data that we need, but for the second one, we don't have. So we can, first of all, we can change our data. So for example, I can define data 1 and data 2. So we can shape data 1 in a way that looks similar to what it was before. So I can create a dictionary here too in JavaScript, and here I can define a new dictionary chart. So first of all, so notice that in JavaScript we don't call dictionaries dictionary, right? We call them objects. Also notice that because if you want to search about how to write a dictionary in JavaScript, nothing will appear because we don't have dictionaries, we have objects. But in Python, we call them dictionaries. So we had labels, chart label, and chart data. Let me write them over here in chart.html. So labels, for labels we have data dot, so let me look at here, data.pp, data.labels, data.labels. For the chart labels, chart label actually, which is written this way, chart label, we will have so don't forget about the comma too, and there we go. And we have data dot, and here we have exactly the same thing, chart label, right? And also for the chart data, which I think is written this way. No, it's with this small letter. So chart data we have, so here we have BP and chart data. Okay, so data.chart data, data.chart data. So let me save this. And also the next thing we should do is to add the part related to data too. But let's pause the video and we will continue this part in the next video. So that's it for this part of the tutorial, and we'll continue this part in the next video.